generally, we would say that the construction industry generally follows the overall economy. And if you look at the economic outlook for Canada, if we simplify it to say GDP growth, we're looking at probably a good increase, I'd say of 3 to 4%. Given everything that we've gone through for 2022, probably slowing a little bit as we move into 23. Fortunately, the construction industry, though, the projection for 22 is actually pretty flat in terms of overall spend, but perhaps picking up, to about, say 2% or so in 2022. And the reasons for that are fairly, I'd say well known in the sense that we're really struggling from a supply perspective. That has really been the governor on additional growth in construction is just the supply of materials, the inflation that's associated with that, the continuing labor shortages that we see. When you look at a national forecast, and we're talking about Canadian construction overall, I recognize that, most people aren't chasing 100% of that, right? We're not working in every single province, and we're not in every single segment or type of work or even project size. But I think it does give us a good barometer of the overall health of the economy. And it does impact, again, things like, building product supply, labor, all those different things, financing of projects that ultimately spill over. But the reason I kind of pointed out some of those segments, again, like communication, the water, wastewater, where there is growth, is just to be reminded that at any given time, any given economy, including the construction industry, that, there's always sort of bull markets and bear markets at all times. And so being able to identify, hey, where are some of those opportunities? And are those opportunities that as an organization, we could potentially align with? I think that's just a really critical thing to keep in mind.
How to build capacity. So they can see a lot of work that needs to be done and is coming down the pipeline. But really, it's how can they gear up for that? And some of the issues would be, for example, Canada needing a long-term investment strategy for infrastructure so that firms can align, can build that workforce, can build that capacity. The other point is that there's already a lot of money available. The government set aside $180 billion for infrastructure, but it's just not flowing. Manitoba, for example, has $1 billion that's been uncommitted from 2018. So there's money in the system. We just have to work together to get that flowing. The second point that Jay talked about is workforce. This is not new. Virtually every province across Canada, there are a few pockets that still have some softer economies, but it's really how do we get the skilled workforce, not just the trades, but the project managers, people working in IT in our industry. And we need to stand out, right? We're not alone in that. Immigration, I think, will take on a much bigger role in addition to making our cultures more diverse and inclusive. And then last but not least is fair procurement. And the supply chain is one example of where contractors have taken on probably too much risk through no fault of their own. And same with COVID, where all those costs and delays for PPE, contractors really responded well. We're very proud of our work with the federal government, who did provide reimbursement for many of the costs from COVID. And the federal government has been a good partner in understanding the delays of the supply chain. But that's not necessarily true with every owner. And so CCA will continue to invest more time and energy in the issue of fair procurement, both governments and private owners.
Construction historically has been a laggard relative to technology adoption, primarily because the margins in construction are relatively low. It's also one of the oldest industries in humankind, and there's pretty set ways in construction, but it does need to evolve, and it is evolving. There's probably been more digitization in construction in the last 5 years than the entirety of the history of construction combined. About 4 years ago, there was a lot of buzz around from our customer group wanting to create a smart building, yet no one really knew what a smart building was. And my take was on it that in order for us to understand what to do and enable a smart building, we should first enable smart construction. We started scanning the market for what sensors or what technology could we put in place to monitor adverse conditions to reduce risk, improve operational efficiency. We quickly found out that a lot of point solutions available, but nothing unique in the marketplace that serve construction that would allow our field crews and people at the workplace of construction to manage what they monitor, if you will. So we created JobSite Insights, and it's essentially an Internet of Things platform that uses sensory at the workplace of construction to detect anomalies. So is there a water leak? Do we have vibration that could impact structure? Obviously, water leaks, temperature and humidity would be examples of two types of sensors that reduce risk at the workplace of construction. We want to avoid damage, we want to avoid rework, and we want to avoid construction waste. And then in other cases, we use the same different types of sensory to really impact operational efficiency. So we put sensors in concrete today, and those sensors help us monitor and manage concrete maturity and strength. So instead of casting cylinders, which has been done for decades, we use sensory to tell us when we can strip formwork and move on to the next floor of a pour, for example. We're looking forward to using sensory to understand worker location and worker safety, and that technology will catch up. We're trying to model the way at PCL of enabling technology to reduce risk and increase operational efficiency.
When you look at the labor issues, you look at material and inflation, there's still a lot of work, but it feels like there's a lot of heightened risk to it. And then with Mark saying, we're looking at these other ways of doing things through technology, bringing new ideas. And so I use the term best of world instead of best in class and rest in world, because it's sort of like, where do we curate our ideas and our knowledge from? And the broader base that we can curate that knowledge from, the more ideas, the more options we actually create. So if we limit our focus, and we were thinking like best in class. So let's say I'm an electrical contractor, and my field of view is only what other electrical contractors are doing it, I'm doing myself sort of a disservice. There's so many lessons that can be learned, not only from other trades and other industries, but completely stuff outside of the construction industry space. So what's going on in the technology world, in the insurance world, in banking, finance, you name it. And so when I talk about best of world, I'm thinking about taking the best ideas across multiple types of industries that I can find a way to apply into my own business within the construction industry. And I think that it is an exciting time for our industry because there are so many new things coming, whether it's from a software perspective, robotics, otherwise. I think there really are opportunities for the industry to adopt those things and to use them.
Barrier one is definitely people and the change management of people and understanding and accepting that technology, making things happen earlier in the life cycle of a build. So getting certain technologies built into the cost or the estimate of the building. By that, it's really the cost benefit or the operational efficiency or the de-risking that comes with that technology. And then education of the technology, I think, is a big barrier. So when you stack a few of those up together, they become an impediment. I don't mind sharing. I know that probably the average water damage claim in PCL is probably somewhere around $500,000. The 10-year average is north of $300,000. If I talk to our vice president of risk management, I would be told that every single construction job has a water issue. It's just, how big is it? Is it 50,000 and less than the deductible of 100,000, so it never gets reported, or is it, $1 million and then you're hitting the deductible and then the payout? And so I would tell you that the cost of deploying and implementing water mitigation technology offsets the risk.
If you take a lesson from the past recession, and we talk with contractors and others in the industry and say, if you had known this was coming, would you have done anything different? And the majority of people will tell you, we actually made the right decisions, we just didn't make them soon enough. And not that I'm suggesting that there's another major recession coming, but we are in times of uncertainty and volatility. And I think it would behoove us to, for the contractors working with their CFO or otherwise, to come up with contingency plans based on sustained increase of prices of 10 to 15% for the next year to 2 years. Not that you're counting on that, but again, just to have those plans in place. And part of the reason why I suggest that is, it's easier to make some of those difficult decisions, when everybody's kind of, cool heads, in the heat of the moment. That gets a lot more difficult. So, going ahead and having some of those plans in place now is something I would highly encourage.
I think we're at sort of a turning point, and the industry can either kind of do what it's doing and survive, or it can really make those investments, the investments in technology, the investments in people changing our culture, the investments in green, and we can thrive. I believe that we can and should be leaders, not just in Canada, but around the world. We are very agile, we're resilient, we've proven it through the recession or the COVID pandemic. And so now's the time, and a great time to be in the industry. And just want to thank you and all your brokers and staff who helped our industry to be as successful as it is. So thank you for your partnership.
There's a significant opportunity for collaboration with the industry to change how construction is done today through the use of technology, changing not only the risk profile for the contractor, but changing it for the insurers as well. And I think time to act is now. The technology is available, the incentive is available. And if we can pioneer that here in Canada and in North America, I think we have the ability to put a stamp on the history of how construction is done today, and how the profile of insurance is correlated to construction as a result. And I think it's a bluebird opportunity, if you will, that we're all enabled and empowered to do. Everyone's just got to take a leap. So I've taken a leap on the technology side. I need the other half of the industry partners to come to the plate and help us change the world.